Hi, I'm Daron Raynor, fitness specialist for Kettering Health, and you're here with no equipment, no problem. We're going to talk about the importance of exercise and why you're able to exercise not just in the traditional gym setting or in the traditional setting of having to have a barbell or dumbbells or weights, but being able to exercise in the comfort of your own home, outdoors, wherever the case may be. Those types of situations are going to be helpful so that you can have the principles and the tools of proper movement and take them and transition them into everyday life. So let's get started. Some of the benefits to exercising at home or away from the gym in a traditional setting is that, one, it is cost effective. You don't have to worry about buying equipment or spending money on those gym memberships that may be a year or maybe monthly. You don't have to worry about those costs because you can work out in the comfort of your own space or outdoors. The world is your playground, as one would say. Another benefit is being able to train with your body weight, being able to be in control of your proprioception, that is your self-awareness. So I know I can look this way and my hand is doing this. I know that my fingers are pointing up and pointing down. That helps to build a little bit more awareness while being able to not have to worry about the stressors of using equipment and stuff like that. Another key is innovation. Once you start to exercise outside of the traditional sense of a gym or using barbells, dumbbells, weights, etc. like that, you are able to now find possibilities that are endless. You're able to see, oh, I can do multiple variations of this exercise, or I can do multiple variations of that exercise, because the principle still remains. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is the principles to a lot of these different types of exercise movements, that you can take it to a gym if you would like, or you can do it in the comfort of your own home. As long as the principle is being maintained, your possibilities are endless. The final thing is it's quick, easy, and effective. When you exercise without the need of your traditional equipment, you're able to get more accomplished in a shorter amount of time, and you can still get more bang for your buck. As I said before, it's the principle that counts. When you have the principle and your understanding of it, and then you can apply it to different situations, well, now you can essentially get in and get out and get your exercise done. So this is what we're going to talk about. Remember, the number one thing here is principle. We apply the principle, and then all the other exercises can follow suit. So let's take a look, for instance, at the squat. We have a few variations here. I have for you the glute squeeze, the assisted chair squat, a chair squat, air squat, and squat jumps. These are all different types of progressions that one can do when it comes to squatting. Now, if I demonstrate for you the importance of a glute squeeze, let's say we're sitting in our chair. We can still hold the squat position, so our feet are going to be about shoulder width apart. We're going to sit up nice and tall, maybe a slight lean forward. And then if I say glute squeeze, I can say squeeze as tight as you can. And for some, you will understand that. For others, you may not have that, what is called mind-muscle connection. So the way that I try to imagine it is try to sit as tall as you can, and then pretend that there's a hand above your head and you're trying to reach and touch that hand with your head. Well, if you are sitting nice and tall and you know that there's a few more inches, try and stretch and reach high without having to push up or anything like that. So as soon as I feel that there's a hand above my head, I reach up, and I may only go up barely an inch, you may not even notice, and I come back down. I press to the floor with my feet, and I reach as high as I can, hold for about 2 seconds, and I come back down. That is the glute squeeze that I'm talking about. And being able to do that, whether you're sitting at a desk or whether you're sitting at home, those types of things will help to activate those muscles and get them mobile enough to get them activated enough in order to get you to be more aware, so that you can go from doing this to maybe sitting and standing. This is a great exercise for somebody who may be in a wheelchair or somebody who may not have the strength to do the sit and stand. Teaching your legs to start muscle activity is going to be the more important aspect here. So again, we talked about the principle of getting the muscles active. Now let's talk about the squat. If I have a chair in front of me, I can have my hands on the chair, which would be a good progression, and I just sit back in the hips. I sit down, keep my chest and my eyes forward, and I stand back up. Now, once I become more comfortable, now I can have my hands on my hips, and I can do the same thing. I can sit and stand up. Remember, your feet must be completely planted to the floor. Using your heels and your big toe, press down and grip the floor as you can, and that'll keep you stable. So the hips go back, I sit down, my chest and my eyes are forward, and I stand back up. Apply that same principle to your air squats and your squat jumps. So if I'm not going to use a chair and I decide I'm just going to be here, it's the same principle. I'm nice and tall, my chest and my eyes are forward, sit into the hips, I come down, I stand back up. If I wanted to do a squat jump, I might go down, and I'm just going to go up on my tiptoes, but that's essentially what we're looking at, okay? So it's the same principle. It's how we descend, how we're in control, we fire out of that movement. So start with some glute squeezes, see how you feel there. Progress it up to an assisted chair squat. It could be you're holding the hands of a friend, you're grabbing onto a ledge, or you're grabbing onto another chair and you're squatting. Let it eventually take you into regular chair squats, air squats, and squat jumps. Apply that principle. Sit into the hips, feet flat, eyes and chest forward. Your squats will work every single time. Our next exercise that we're going to take a look at is the step up. Now, if I'm here, one of the things that we find in a lot of homes will be ledges or stairs that people may have if they have 2 stories or 3 stories or whatever the case may be. This same principle is going to apply. When we're doing a step up, we're working on the hips, the front and the back of the thigh, and we're working on single leg strength, okay? So I can do an assisted version where I'm grabbing on, let's pretend these are the handrails here, going up the steps. My foot is going to be here. Instead of being just straight upright because I don't have the control that I desire, I'm going to lean forward to keep my center of gravity right over top of my foot. So when I lean forward, I'm just going to press through the foot, stand up, I'm going to lower myself back down. Now, the same thing applies. Gripping the ground with your foot, leaning over a little bit, chest and eyes are forward just like we did with the squat. And my hands are on the rail, and I press up and I stand. And then I apply the same principle, the hips go back, and I reach for the ground, and I do that. I might alternate legs. As I get more comfortable, I might change to a little bit more pace. This is a little bit more challenging. And you notice I'm not having my hands on the imaginary guardrails, but I'm still following the same principle. I'm leaning forward, my eyes are forward, and we're just like so. Now, if you wanted to make it much more challenging, you could follow the ladies in the photo here, for example. Find a bench at a park, or you could find a higher platform, and that will allow a greater muscular activation. You'll get more stretch, and you'll get a little bit more out of the muscle in the legs, specifically in the glutes and in the thigh. The higher up your platform, the more activation you're going to get in the back of your leg. The lower, maybe a little bit more in the front. And it also depends on how you're leaning, but the same principle applies. You're leaning forward just a little bit, your chest and your eyes are forward, and just like the squat, press up, stand up, okay? Now, if we're taking a look at the next exercise here, which is the hip bridge, I'm going to lay down flat on my back. My feet are going to be pulled in, not super close, but not too far out. I'm going to pull my feet in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to think about pushing my hips up to the sky, not my back. Sometimes we make the mistake when we do hip bridges of pushing our back to the sky, and we wind up having a little bit of like some pinching or pain. So think about taking your hips, more so your thighs even, and pushing your thighs to the ceiling. So grip the ground with your feet, using your heels, press through the ground, and push your thighs up to the sky, hold for a second, and back down. Take a deep breath, exhale, press thighs to the sky, and back down. That's 2. Let's do it one more time. Press up, hold, and come back down. You're going to feel this activation in the rear, but it's also going to be very beneficial to being able to take the load off of your back. A lot of times we have back issues because we're not finding that our legs are taking the brunt of the force and the pressure that we are dealing with day to day, whether it be lifting, holding overhead, or whatever the case may be. We find that a lot of times our back takes a little bit more stress than the legs should. Doing glute bridges is going to help with taking the force out of the back and bringing it more so into the legs so that you don't have to carry as much stress and as much force into those smaller muscles in the low back. So the same principle applies. As we lay down on our back and we bring our hips and our thighs up to the ceiling, you can do the same thing with a single leg movement. When you do it with a single leg movement, now you're adding a little bit more weight to only one leg and you're isolating. So now you're bringing in more stability and more control is necessary. It's going to be more challenging. Now, if you wanted to make it even harder, you might lay on your back and you might put your foot up on a platform. That's going to recruit deeper muscles. It's going to recruit a little bit more activation, and you're going to get a little bit more, again, out of those muscles. But the principle still applies. You're lying down on your back. You're using your feet flat on the floor, as we demonstrated, about shoulder width apart. And the same thing applies, whether it's going to be a single leg or my foot is on top of a platform or my feet are just flat. This is a simple aspect here. Press your hips and your thighs to the ceiling, hold for a second, and come back down. Maybe do about 10 to 12 of those, and you're going to find that it's a lot more than you anticipated. You're going to feel a lot more activation in the glutes, okay? If you're feeling it in the low back, reassess, slow it down, repeat it again, and focus more on the thighs going to the ceiling than the torso. If we focus on the torso going to the ceiling, you might feel a little bit of that low back strain. We do not want that, okay? Now, let's talk about chest press. A lot of people are like, well, I can only bench press, or I can only do the chest press machine at the gym. That's not always the case, and that doesn't have to be the case. Now, if we're looking at the chest press from a seated standpoint, we can sit up nice and tall, and all we have to do, bring my chest proud, like I'm Superman, all right? My hands are gonna be here, just in line with my shoulders, and I'm gonna press out in front of me, and I'm gonna come back. This is what you can practice simply by sitting in your chair, sitting at the table, or if you're walking, some people might do some little punches like that. That's okay. What you're doing is you're teaching the muscles to move, you're teaching the joints to move in the way that will best bring out some of those chest muscles. So what we're going to start with is, I have a canned good here because this is no equipment, no problem. You're able to use different things. We already used a chair, we've used a stair stepper. Now we're going to use some cans. This is called a pull-off press, okay? So with the pull-off press, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hands, I'm going to squeeze the can together like I can squish it, adding a little bit of tension in my hands. I'm going to start at my chest. Chest is proud. I'm going to push out. I'm going to come back in. Push out. I'm going to come back in. What you're doing is you're bringing in muscle fibers from the shoulder all the way across the chest, as well as bringing in some core control. When you bring core control in, it's because as I go heavier and as I push out, now I'm tempted to drop the weight down, or I'm tempted to kind of like lean back to prevent dropping it down. No, it should stay the same thing. So I want to sit up nice and tall. My core is tight. Nothing adjusts except for my hand position. So if I wanted to use something heavier like my water bottle, it's the same thing. I can't lock my fingers. I can pinch it together, be nice and tall, push out. I can feel that core activation, and I can feel my shoulders working now, and come back in. Again, you don't need the traditional bench press or the traditional chest press to get the job done. Now, you can use a ball as well. The nice thing about the ball is it will have a little bit of squish, so it'll push back on you, which will bring in a little bit more stress in those chest and shoulder muscles, which is what you want for some muscle activation. So squeeze the ball as you press out, squeeze it as you bring it back in, and you're going to feel as though you've done 20 or 30 push-ups, I guarantee it. Speaking of push-ups, now we can look at some modified approaches there. If after you've done the pull-off press, which is what it's called, then you might look into doing push-ups from a different angle. So if I have a wall, I usually would recommend starting off there. Have one foot back, hand on the wall, lean into it, and press away. And then eventually you might go both feet back, and you know I can't have exactly the lean that I would like, but you understand what I'm saying. I can lean into the wall and I can push away. As it becomes more and more easy for me, now I can come down here and work my way down the wall to where now I can make it to a platform of some sort. Here's a chair. I bring my feet back straight, I can lower down, and I can press up. Again, we talked about keeping that core rigid, keeping everything tight, not arching for the sake of trying to stay up or trying to compensate. If you find yourself doing that, climb back up the wall. That's okay. Since I'm here on the platform, again, my feet are back, shoulder width apart. The same principle applies. Only thing that's moving is the arms. All right, I come down. Nothing else is shaking or twisting, and I push away. Make it all the way down to the floor if you can. Eventually you can do knee push-ups, or you may climb back up. And it's okay as well that I point this out. We notice the lady here on the bench, she's doing push-ups in this way, and we see the gentleman above is doing the Palloff pressing with the dumbbells in front of him. Some weeks you may be doing a bench press or a chest press from the bench, and some weeks you may not have the strength that you desire, and you may wind up doing the chest press like the gentleman there. Both are absolutely okay. It's important to do what you feel suits you best and what is most appropriate for you that day. Sometimes we don't have all of the energy. Sometimes we may be coming off of an injury. Different things like that. Just because you can doesn't always mean you should. And sometimes it's okay to take the load off. You don't always have to stay in this constant state of like challenging yourself. Sometimes you just have to go through the movement, change it up, switch it up, okay? The next one is one of my favorites. This is the row. Now, we're gonna go into first a seated row. Now, I don't have any resistance bands because we're trying to use non-traditional gym equipment. But if you had a band, you can do that. All you do is grab the band with your arms out, try and break the band apart as you pull it into your chest, and bring it back out as your band comes back together. Again, break the band apart, pull it into the chest, and just like so. Now, if you don't have a band, I can feel that in my back just as much. So my hands are out, and again, now we think about that principle of bringing out the Superman chest. I grab, I open the suit, show the big S on the chest, and I come back forward. Again, nice and tall posture, open the suit, show the S on the chest, and go back. You're gonna be activating all of these muscles in your back, which is gonna help improve your posture. It's gonna also help strengthen the imbalances that may be shown in the chest and pull your shoulders back in a more neutral position. Now, if I'm looking to challenge myself, I may bring in a little bit more of a full body component. So we start with our good friend here. I'm gonna stand up nice and tall, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hinge at the hip. So a lot of times when I say bend, people wind up bending and their back is all rounded. We don't want that, okay? So what I imagine is this. Pretend that there is a car door that's open behind you, or pretend that your refrigerator door is open behind you. You can't really reach the fridge if you're just bending at the back like that. Notice how nothing has changed. What you have to do is lasso your hips. Imagine there's a lasso at the hips, and your hips are pushed back to close the car door or to close the fridge door, okay? So again, we lasso the hips, push the hips back. Now I am in a good position to row. The same principle applies. Chest is big, eyes are forward, and now I have my can good, and I just pull it into my pocket, and I go back down. Nothing else is changing. My torso is rigid, so my core is tight. My elbow comes back, my hand goes into my pocket, and back down. All right? Now, if we want to make it a little bit more challenging, you could use a water bottle, okay? When you use the water bottle, maybe you add a little bit more water, you make it more, make the resistance greater, add more weight to it. So right now I have about a full bottle of water here. I'm gonna grab onto the handle, the same principle. I'm gonna pour out. I'm gonna be here, pull my elbow into my pocket, and back down. It feels a bit heavier, and that's what we want, okay? Eventually, you might opt for a larger water bottle or something that you can add a little bit more weight to. You might even go on to use a backpack, or you might use a purse, and the same thing applies. Notice how nothing about me has changed, only the resistance. And that's what I just need to keep reiterating, that's what we've been talking about this whole time, is the principle is what is the most important thing. When we understand the principle, now we can have versatility, and we understand even more how the world is our playground. Because you might see a tree branch and know that you can do pull-ups on it. A safe tree branch, of course. So now let's move on. Now we have bicep curls that are going to be done specifically with our good friend here. So again, I'm nice and tall. My shoulders are back. I'm going to have my palm facing forward, as you can see here. And all I'm going to do is bring my hand to my shoulder while trying to keep my elbow stable. A lot of times you'll see people bring their elbow up here as they curl, and that kind of takes the wind out of the sails, essentially. You're not giving yourself the best bang for your buck on that bicep. So I'm nice and tall, my palm is forward. I'm going to bring my hand to my shoulder while maintaining my elbow position. Notice that my elbow doesn't really move. I come up and I go back down. If I am not strong enough to use canned goods, it's okay to use my hand. What would I do? I'll squeeze as tight as I can, as though I have like a stress toy in my hand. Squeeze as tight as I can. Bring my elbow up, and I'm bring my hand up. I'm going to try and bring my hand as close to my shoulder as possible without moving my elbow. So when I come here, I'm going to pull in a little bit more. Now I feel that bicep squeezing. Once I have my can, I come up. I'm going to pull in a little bit more. I feel that bicep squeezing. Okay? Now, if you want to make it a little bit more challenging, you can always, like we have in our demonstration here, the lady using her water bottle, you can grab the water bottle with both hands. You can come down, come up a little bit, we said, squeeze as close as you can without moving that elbow, and come back down. I'll show you a side view. I'm nice and tall. Bring my hand up, squeeze as tight as I can, and back down. Again, the principle is there. I stay tall, my hand is forward, and the only thing moving is my hand coming up to my shoulder, my elbow stays the same. Once we understand that, we can do many great things with a bicep curl. We can use different types of equipment. You might use cans or a bottle or a bag, anything like that that is best suited for the resistance that you desire. Finally, to close it all out, I just wanted to highlight the importance of activity. When we exercise, a lot of times we do it as a chore or we try to do things because our doctor said so. But I want you to remember this. Find what works best for you, number one, because if you don't enjoy it, there's no point in doing it. If you don't enjoy it, it becomes a drudgery, your motivation drops, and you wind up being more why me than yes, I get to exercise. So find what works best for you. Make sure that the activity is enjoyable. And remember that movement is what matters. So as you can see, we have some friends here. Some are hiking, some are doing some yoga stretching. We have a gentleman playing tennis. All are different activities and all are great. And I also want to highlight, when you find an activity that you enjoy, then you can start to look into what regimented strength training or workout programs are going to be suited for that activity. So if I enjoy walking, I may do exercises that are going to strengthen my legs so that I can walk more efficiently and I can walk better. If I enjoy tennis, I'm going to look up exercises that are good for my upper body, for swinging, as well as for controlling my legs if I'm going side to side. So whatever activity you enjoy, find first the enjoyable activity, then apply a workout principle to it. And remember, the bottom line is movement is what matters. If you're doing exercise and you enjoy it, or even if you don't enjoy it, sometimes it's okay to say, okay, I came in today, I worked out, I got the movement in. Movement is medicine. And it can be any activity. No one has to do the traditional gym-based or strength training type of thing. You don't have to allow yourself to be stuck in a bubble. It's important to do what is best suited for you. I'm Daron Raynor, and this is Kettering Health. No equipment, no problem. Be well. We'll see you soon.